The Young and the Restless spoilers. Saturday's full episodes. April 19, 2025. Nikki paced the length of Victor's private office, the late afternoon sunlight slanting through the Venetian blinds to cast striped shadows across the mahogany floor. Victor sat behind his massive desk, steepling his fingers, his expression inscrutable. The air between them crackled thicker than the tension in Genoa City's streets after Tracy's murder. "I know how you feel about my war with Jack," Nikki began, her voice tight. She stopped mid-stride and fixed him with a fierce glance. "But you nearly got me killed." Victor's pale blue eyes remained unperturbed. "I saved you, Nikki." She let out a short, humorless laugh. "Saved me? You weren't there that night, Victor. You don't know how desperate I was, trapped between your vendetta and Jack's stubborn pride." She folded her arms. "I begged you to end this feud. I pleaded." Victor leaned forward, the weight of his presence filling the room. "And I stand by my decisions. If your life was endangered, it was collateral, not target." "Collateral? You would casually sacrifice me to prove a point?" Nikki's voice cracked with betrayal. He waved a hand dismissively. "I did what I had to do, for the family's long-term interests." She took a trembling breath. "Family? You speak of family, yet you manipulate Kyle and Claire like game pieces." Nikki's cheeks flushed with anger. "When will you stop trying to control everyone around you?" Victor's lips curved into a fleeting smile. "My control ensures stability. You saw what happened when I relinquished it, chaos." Nikki's eyes narrowed. "You predicted a disaster for Kyle and Claire. Do you plan to ruin their relationship yourself?" "Of course not," Victor said smoothly, though Nikki could see the faintest flicker of satisfaction in his gaze. "I guarantee their romance will collapse under real-world pressures, just as any ill-fated union would." "Guarantee?" Nikki echoed in disbelief. "Or engineer." "Enough," Victor said, rising to his full height. "It's time we focus on the meeting with Aristotle Dumas and Billy Abbott. They've arranged to see us tomorrow." Nikki's frown deepened. "Billy? Do you really think he's after Chancellor?" Victor nodded, turning toward the window. "He's ambitious, yes, but he knows the Chancellor name carries weight and leverage." He didn't elaborate, but Nikki could read between the lines. Victor suspected Billy was angling for a hostile takeover or at least a seat at the corporate table. Nikki squared her shoulders. "Well, if he thinks he can play us, he'll have to answer to me." Victor's gaze returned to her. "Just listen, Nikki, observe. Don't let your emotions drive your reactions. Let Aristotle do the talking, and evaluate Billy's true intentions before you make your move." Later that evening, Jack Abbott found himself in Diane's office at Jabot, the hush of after-hours magnifying their voices. Diane poured 2 coffees, her hand steady despite the turmoil in her eyes. "He found the mole," Jack said, staring at the glossy photograph on Diane's desk, a close-up of a small, jagged-edged hole in the Jabot server room wall. Diane nodded. "Kyle did. He was reviewing last quarter's sales data, noticed a discrepancy, ran a tracer, and this hole showed up on security footage." She tapped the photo. "Someone's been siphoning proprietary design files." Jack couldn't hide his pride. "I was impressed. He went straight to the evidence instead of pointing fingers." "It's a trait he got from you, Diane." She smiled faintly. "He learned from the best." Then her expression sobered. "But Victor will see this as another opportunity to drive a wedge between us." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "He's not a threat to Kyle anymore. Those days are gone, Diane." "Don't be so sure," she warned. "Victor has a long memory, and more resources than Jabot in its prime. Every time we think we've extinguished the fires he started, he lights another match." Jack set his jaw. "Then we'll prepare. Kyle and Claire will confront this head-on. And I'll make sure Jack Abbott's name still carries its own weight." He reached out and patted Diane's hand. "We'll be ready." Diane nodded, but as Jack left her office, she lingered by the window, watching the city lights flicker against the night sky. In those lights she saw both hope and peril, hope in the resilience of her friends and family, peril in the shadow of Victor Newman's reach. Tomorrow's meeting with Aristotle Dumas and Billy Abbott promised to be a turning point. Would Victor launch an offensive in the boardroom that day, or would Nikki's vigilant presence steer the conversation toward détente? Meanwhile, Kyle and Claire, sensing the threat not only to their relationship but to the very integrity of Jabot, would step into the fray as allies to Jack and Diane. Or risk becoming pawns in another Newman gambit. In Genoa City, alliances shift as quickly as the wind off the lake. Trust is earned in blood and back-channel whispers, and every conversation, no matter how cordial, can contain a dagger. Nikki's plea for respite from vendettas, Jack's fatherly pride in Kyle's ingenuity, Diane's cautious wisdom, these voices represent a fragile coalition against Victor's empire of influence. But in the end, Victor Newman plays for keeps. And as Nikki stormed out of his office, vowing to confront Billy Abbott, and Jack drove home with Diane's warning echoing in his mind, one question remained: can they outmaneuver a man who believes he is always right? Or will Victor's next move leave them gasping for escape from yet another lockdown in his personal war? Only tomorrow's dawn would tell, and in Genoa City, dawn arrives too soon for those who have yet to settle their scores. ChatGPT de NOI. At a corner table under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, Kyle Abbott and Claire Gracewood sat only inches apart, yet an unspoken distance pulsed between them. The ballroom around them, a Jabot gala to benefit the Genoa City Women's Alliance, swirled with laughter and clinking champagne flutes, but their little enclave felt isolated, charged with tension. Claire toyed with her fork, tracing arabesques in the creamy risotto. She took a deep breath, steadying her voice. "Kyle, there's something I've been meaning to ask you," she began, eyes flicking to the other end of the table, where their friends mingled. "I keep thinking about your past with Audra. Do you still have feelings for her?" Kyle set his wine glass down with deliberate calm. The rim caught the light, a fragile circle of gold. "Claire," he said, voice low, "that was a, what did you call it, a fling. It didn't mean anything beyond its moment." Claire's brow furrowed. "Then why do you keep bringing her up?" "You were better friends with her than with me for a while." Kyle's jaw tightened. "I'm sick of this," he snapped, leaning back so abruptly his chair scraped against the parquet floor. Heads turned, a waiter paused in mid-step. Claire flinched but didn't look away. He ran a hand through his hair, as though dislodging the tension from his scalp. "I'm sorry," he said, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I didn't mean to snap. Everyone keeps asking about Glissade. About what happened in Paris, and I'd rather forget it all." Claire's eyes softened with sympathy, but her pride nudged her forward. "I'm not everyone. I want to understand you, not to pry, but how can we move forward if you keep shutting me out?" Kyle leaned in again. "Claire, I love us. That's all that matters. Forget what Audra, or anyone else, said or did. I just want to focus on you, on us." She nodded slowly, the tension easing but not disappearing. "Okay. What about that big win you mentioned at Jabot? You said it was huge, what was it?" Kyle's expression flickered. He glanced toward the stage where a spotlight now shone on the evening's honorees. I can't go into detail about the specifics," he said, voice guarded. Claire tilted her head. "Why not? If it's such a big accomplishment, why is it confidential?" He swallowed. "Because it's not just about Victor. It's about me." He paused, then met her gaze squarely. "Victor Newman paid a corporate spy to feed me sensitive Jabot strategies. I have the emails, the bank transfers, hell, the guy confessed." Claire's hand flew to her mouth. "You're serious? He tried to bribe you?" Kyle exhaled, relief and anger mingling in his tone. "Yes. And I turned him down." I gathered the evidence, handed it over to the board. Victor underestimated me. A proud smile broke across Claire's face. That is incredible, said Kyle Abbott, standing up to Victor Newman. He reached across the table, brushing his thumb over her knuckles. I did it for us. So you'd see that I'm not just some plaything in a family feud. Claire's smile wavered, replaced by concern. I'm proud of you, truly. But, Victor will not take this lying down. Are you prepared for what he'll do next? Before Kyle could answer, a voice drifted from the edge of the dance floor. Nate, darling, I think we belong right here. Audra Charles stepped into the soft light, a silk gown hugging her curves, one hip cocked provocatively. Beside her, Nate Hastings stood taller than usual, white tuxedo jacket immaculate, his grin wide. They began to sway to the slow waltz, hands clasped. Audra's eyes, luminous under the chandeliers, caught sight of Kyle. She paused mid-turn, sending a deliberately sultry smile in his direction. Kyle's chest tightened. He looked at Claire, her eyebrows rose in curiosity. Audra took a small step toward them, then spun back into Nate's arms. The music swelled, the dancers circling like planets in orbit. Claire reached out and touched Kyle's hand. Ignore her, she whispered, though her voice quivered. Let's just, Audra, sensing her moment, leaned toward Nate and murmured something that made him chuckle. Then, in one seamless movement, she slipped from Nate's embrace and approached Kyle and Claire's table, glass of champagne in hand. Kyle, she purred, voice airy-pitched. I hope you're enjoying the party. Her gaze lingered on him, eyes bright as a cat's. Kyle straightened, jaw firm. I am, thanks, he said stiffly. He lifted his chin ever so slightly to include Claire. And you, Audra? Audra's lips curved into that practiced, alluring smile. Oh, you know me. I always find my way back to old haunts, or old friends. She glanced at Claire, nodding politely. Claire, nice to see you again. Claire's fingers tightened around Kyle's hand. Nice to see you, too, she said, her voice polite but reserved. Audra's smile didn't falter, it widened. Well, I won't keep you two from your intimate conversation. She gave Kyle one last lingering look, one part challenge, one part invitation, then swept back onto the dance floor, Nate at her side, and melted into the throng of dancers. Kyle exhaled in a rush. That was awkward. Claire gave him a wry smile. Understatement of the century. She reached across, brushing her fingers along his palm. Do you think she wanted something from you? He shook his head, though his heart still hammered. No. I think she just wanted to remind me she's still around, that she can make things complicated if she wants. Claire let her head rest against his shoulder. Then let's not give her the satisfaction. Tonight is about us. Kyle draped an arm around her, pulling her close. The strain in his shoulders eased. You're right. Tonight is ours. They leaned into each other as the violin's melody soared, and for a moment, the world beyond their table, the vendettas, the corporate wars, the ghosts of old flames, faded into the background. But as the music faded into the night, both of them knew that in Genoa City, no embrace lasts forever, and no threat ever truly disappears. Outside the ballroom, through the tall windows, the city lights beckoned, and somewhere beneath them, Victor Newman was already plotting his next move. But tonight, Kyle and Claire would hold on to each other, determined to face whatever came with unity, and to prove that some couples, at least, are worth fighting for. 2 of 2.